Are you ready to take your aerial reconnaissance to new heights? Meet Werx, your go-to source for cutting-edge aviation analysis and intelligence updates. It's all happening right on Patreon. With 4 tiers, you get to choose what level suits your needs. From discounts at the workshop to ad-free content, you'll have access to live SITREPs, Q&As, and video archives. Werx Patreon isn't just a subscription. It's a doorway to unparalleled insights, exclusive content only available here, and a strong community of like-minded individuals who share the same passion for intelligence analysis.
Hey folks, Mil-Spec Opswicki here. Listen, I am thrilled to invite you to our exclusive community over here on Patreon. All right, hey, welcome folks. This is going to be your SITREP. It's 5/21/2024 as we get into the deets today here live from the Monkey Lounge in the great state of Texas. And so we're going to talk a lot about cloud seeding. We're going to talk a lot about what's happening around the world. We're going to talk about this helicopter stuff. We're going to talk about some of the coup attempts. Then we're going to look at the flights. And just to show you the amount of stuff that is getting moved around the world right now, it's absolutely incredible. But let's do this. Let's jump over to Skyglass right now. Big takeaway. I got one for you. This is only 27 miles south or east-southeast of the Russian Federation. That is a Q4 drone. And you will see it is high altitude. Wait, let me back that up a little bit. That is going to be the one, 52,000 feet. So it's above commercial traffic. However, what I found interesting is that it seems to be shadowing this T-154, which is a Russian asset, and on the same flight path. But I know that is not going to go across right there because it would get shot down if it went across the border. So he's probably going to make a turn here shortly. But this one, boogieing on out, more than likely he was down in Azerbaijan or Georgia or somewhere in this general region. Don't know who it is. But just want to point that out. So pretty unusual to see the Q4 drone on the eastern side of the Black Sea. So again, it's a data point. We'll just keep our eyes on that. But that probably tells you they are clearly worried about something going on over here. Now, I know we've got all kinds of stuff happening in the news relative to this region. But let's do this. Let's jump over here to our watch list first and foremost. And actually, before I do that, let me just tell you, I've taken out 200 trainers from the list here. We've already scrubbed it. And if I look at just mil aircraft up over the United States, we're sitting at 298 aircraft up, at least on screen that you can see from that standpoint. We've got our high flyers as usual, the Intel balloons that are over the United States. And then let's just see anything else catches my eye. Now, in fact, let me tell you what catches my eye. 50 of these H-60 Blackhawks. That's an incredible number. 6 to 8 is our usual. This right here is probably about 10 to 12. So you could strip those out and discount them because they're probably tied to training and things of that nature. But all of this up the Eastern Seaboard is very active, very busy. Okay. Take out the H-60s. Let's look at the air refuelers. 29 KC-135s. On screen, 25. So 4 of them are over the European side of the house. And then if we go to B762, adds another 6. Those are domestic over the United States for the most part. Brings our total up to 31 over the United States right now. Remember, a good indicator of fighters up over the United States and abroad, actually. All right. So let me back that out. Let's look at our watch list. Big key takeaway is you got an intelligence asset over Southern California. And then let's see, we got an R-135 just getting airborne, E6 currently up. We've got our agency charter boys, that's Phoenix Air. And then we have Air Force One, which I believe he's headed to Boston today, right? And there you go. All right. Nothing really else that I think we ought to focus on right now. Intel-wise, some big movements coming across the U.S., a little bit of stuff down into the Keys. And then you can see that Georgia, South Carolina, I don't know what's going on there. Very active. But then Europe, it kind of tells a story. There is nothing moving in and out of Kaliningrad that we don't have eyes on. I mean, literally, grasshoppers we were probably watching. Yeah, it's a joke, but yeah, there's nothing going on there that we don't see. And of course, you can see down here over the Mediterranean, north of Libya. Of course, Israel is all up in Syria's business and to the north. So that tells me that you probably got some activity happening. They are very concerned about on the northern end as they go through and do their Rafah stuff down in Gaza. That is the reason we're looking at Libya is because when we backed out of Benghazi, Russia basically just came in and took over that area. So, okay, let's talk R-135s. Again, this tells the story. You get out over kind of the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico at pinch point, and then that broken trace, that tells you they're out there. They don't want you to see why or where they're out there and where they're looking. Then this little box, as always, out over that side of the house, Montana, Wyoming. Right, and then looking at something up in Canada. We get to Europe, not over the normal area around Kaliningrad because we already got intel gathering things, but then notice that broken trace back and forth, looking at Crimea, and then clearly looking at something in North Korea because we've got a flight right there over South Korea. Okay, let's look at the E6 traffic over the United States. Again, this is just an indicator. We got subs off the West Coast, subs down in the Gulf of Mexico, and subs off the East Coast. You know that because this aircraft is talking to the nukes on the subs. Okay, then we go into the AWACS. And you'll see over Constanta, right? Remember, advanced early warning. So these things are looking for nukes. And then you get them up here. They're over France, it looks like. And then you can see little man-in-the-middle circles as they fly over various areas, the Netherlands, down into Germany, down into Austria, that side of the house. All right. And then let me see if we can get us here over Asia. I don't see much there. Australia, as always, same spots. They're always out in these same general areas. And then, of course, the U.S., that the part, you can see them coming out over Louisiana. You see them coming out towards the Texas border near Laughlin, Del Rio, out off the West Coast. And then we've got this area up near D.C., all right, for obvious reasons. Okay, now let's talk H-60s for a second. This is going to be your Helos, Blackhawks, total 779 flights over the last 5 days. Very busy. Notice this one out off the West Coast. That is very close to the danger box area where we saw the Russian missile firing box that got quickly taken down. I guess it got a little too much attention. Probably didn't have good optics on the U.S. for the Russians to be out there firing missiles off our West Coast, but they took it down almost immediately. Tried to say it was tied to, an inbound satellite or broken up rocket stuff, but nope, negative. All right, and then, of course, you can see some very long flights over Europe. Some transitions there. All right, and then let's talk gas for a minute. This is going to be your tankers. I just want to point this out. 282 flights the last 5 days. And just notice, very active over Japan, down into Okinawa. Okay, and then if we bounce over here to Europe, very active, right? Again, air refuelers, that's a good indicator of fighters. Notice those long transitions. Okay, that tells you that they're moving fighters around, probably into the Middle East, etc. Broken. See that headed down into Africa, right? What's right there? Nigeria, Niger, all of that little belt where we've had just a sea of coups. We'll talk a little bit about that today too. Over the United States, the big takeaway is just notice down to the borders, out over the Gulf of Mexico, up the East Coast. You see one down into the Virgin Islands, but up the East Coast. And then notice those long traces headed over to Hawaii. That's and a broken traces out here, probably because of that the Russian box that was out, right? And anyway, that's going to be your air refuelers. Let's get into the deets. We're going to talk about some cloud seeding for a minute, all right? Now, this is important. If you're not familiar with what cloud seeding is, let's just take a look. This is one of the cloud seeding aircraft, and you'll see these little, they look like antennas, probes that stick off the back of the wing. That's right there, all right? That's what they spray, silver iodine. They fly right up next to the cloud or into the cloud or just above the cloud. They release this stuff, and what it does is, in essence, it makes the cloud drops or the water droplets in the cloud like sponges. It just makes them get big. So now, let that sink in. If you have hail that's inside that cloud and these droplets are getting big as water droplets, when they become ice, they get big as well, okay? And so that's why you're seeing probably these large hail storms in areas we typically don't see them, okay? So let me take you over here. I want to talk a little bit about the silver iodine. This is what the chemical that they are using to spray into the clouds. It's silver iodine, all right? Now, my guess is that if this was indeed the reason why you were getting the flooding in the areas, just like we see or that we saw in Dubai, right? We saw them, they do the cloud seeding. They don't even try to hide it, okay? They do it. The company names are Seeding Operations and Aerial Reconnaissance, or SOAR. I say reconnaissance, aerial research, atmospheric research. And then the other one is Weather Modification LLC, all right? And so they don't try to hide it even in the name. These are third party, they're non-government entities. They probably get a lot of government funding to do what they do, but this ought to be the big takeaway for you, okay? When the EPA is saying that this is a hazardous silver iodine, hazardous substance, toxic pollutant, or a priority pollutant, they're telling you it's bad. It says that in very low concentrations, it's not really harmful to humans or wildlife. But we're just going to say, if you were to take water samples where you're having all of the flooding, I'm willing to bet you would probably find some silver iodine traces in those water samples. Okay. All right. Let's move on from that. I want to point out this is over the last 10 days, and as was the weather modification flights that we're going to show you last 10 days. This is the area right here that is feeding the Houston side of the house, right? Which is hundreds of miles away. You see these orange colors right here? Okay. That is, gives you 6 to 7 inches of rain is what you're getting here. Thus the flooding. Even the deeper stuff here is 3 to 4 inches of rain in the dark greens. Okay, but let's go look. If you look at the cloud seeding over the last 10 days, this is Weather Modification LLC. You'll see it out there, kind of West Texas and then Southwest. That's the stuff that feeds into Houston right here. So when they're dropping that stuff into the clouds, those clouds carry it away, and it just builds up those huge rain droplets. All right. Notice the altitude on this one. When you see it super high like that, that tells you they are hitting thunderstorms with those seeds, because that's the only thing that you're going to get, those high clouds, right? And then, of course, look over the Dakotas. I don't know what they're doing here. So if you're up there and you're seeing weird weather, that's why. All right. Okay. Now, I'm just going to fast forward this over to the Saudi side of the house just to show you they're still doing it. Notice you got a transition of an asset coming in. It landed in Iceland, but it's coming into the region or going out of the region, one or the other. Notice it stops kind of right there near Egypt, or at least breaks off, and then it goes down here into Saudi Arabia. That's Riyadh right there. But when they're doing that, the wind is carrying it out towards that side of the house, which is over towards the Persian Gulf, which is Bahrain and UAE, Qatar, etc. Okay? All right, you're tracking. Now, this is, let me just show you what these clouds boiling up. Remember, this is Houston. The cloud seeding stuff is taking shape out here, and you can just see these tops that are firing as it comes right in over Houston. Okay, so just general idea, gives you kind of a baseline, right, of what they're doing with the cloud seeding, why you see the flooding. Is it going to stop? I don't think so. I think they are figuring out, hey, this is a great way to get a lot of water on the ground. And so the downside is it impacts us via your insurance carriers, because you have damage on your house, your cars, whatever it may be. And of course, we just saw record rates come through the state of Texas Everybody's complaining about it. And that's the Texas Insurance Commission, by the way, that approved the insurance companies to jack your rates. All right. So the only, my guess is they strong-armed him, probably told him, hey, the only other option you have is we back out of Texas. We stop holding policies, and that's detrimental on the state. So you have to prove it. So, but when we talk about turbulence, this is key. This is incredible what happened here. But this is a 777 that was flying, hit severe turbulence on a London to Singapore flight. Check this out. This will blow your mind. 7 passengers, 7 in critical condition. 23 passengers, 1 crew member had moderate injuries, which means they were probably in service, right? And then you have one that's actually killed. They said he had a heart attack. I imagine that would probably be me. Because this flight, you can see it coming out of London, headed to Singapore as it flies across the region. But what's interesting is it dropped 6,000 feet. 6,000 feet. Now, I will tell you, as a former aircraft mechanic, A&P licensed mechanic, working for one of the major airlines, and it's going to date me a little bit, but I can remember an L-1011 coming in that the overhead bins, you could see where people had gone through the ceiling panels and the overhead bins because they hit turbulence. There was hair and flesh stuck to these bins. It had blood all over the place, people throwing up. There was vomit. Yeah, it was a pretty bad thing. And of course, because they were in the middle of doing cart service, people weren't seated on L-1011s. This is back in the day when you used to smoke on these things. There was stuff everywhere. And so 6,000 foot drop. And that one that we probably witnessed when the aircraft came in was probably a 2,000 foot drop. This one, 6,000 feet. That is so significant. It's crazy. Okay. Now, as we continue to watch the water, check this out. EPA says it will step up cyber regulation of water systems amid the increase in cyber attacks. That just tells you it's happening. They are actually doing it. They know, they're seeing their systems get dinged. And then, of course, right over here behind me, if I bring this up a little bit, you can see another cyber attack actually disrupts operations at major U.S. healthcare networks. So this isn't going away anytime soon. But this right here, if they're able to hack into a system, they can make the system do a lot of different things. They can cause it to shut down, and then we have no running water. So take you right back to the Stone Age. Okay, we're talking turbulence. I just want to point this out. You got a lot of weather moving into today. I think Iowa and Chicago and all of this general area. But this right here is turbulence at 30,000 feet. That's right in the wheelhousing of commercial aviation. And so pay attention to that. It just means you got some really bad weather in that. And then these are the danger boxes. This is where you see the helos coming out, looking at stuff. My guess is probably looking at ships. This is the area that Russian box popped on and then popped off within about 24 hours. Now, the only other thing catches me is the fact we're going 5 deep over here in some areas. Little boxes, big boxes. These are danger boxes and restricted airspace off the eastern seaboard. Why? I don't really know, but that is a pretty good indicator of where we are as a country in terms of the elevated tempo, okay? Now, I did just have a box that went straight across here. It was a missile box. It has since gone away, but it looked like some type of a missile launch, which was strange because it went north to south. So anyway, that's where we are with that. So let's move on because we're going to try and keep this to a 30-minute SITREP. Now, this is Flashbang. Like I said, he's headed up to actually, he arrives in Nashua, New Hampshire, and then he's headed over here to Boston on the campaign trail. Now, the interesting piece is we heard, I think it was Megyn Kelly came out and said that he was supposed to be dropping out this month due to health reasons. Well, I would say he's certainly a candidate for that because he doesn't have the mental wherewithal to find his way out of a wet paper sack right now. So anyway, this is where he is. Evidently, he didn't get the memo he's supposed to drop this month. So he's continuing on the campaign trail. And so, all right. Now, if you've been following F-35s, you know I'm a former F-35 guy. Spent a lot of time on the sustainment side of the house, and this is a little alarming, given the fact that we always talk about we can't get things out to the field, where manufacturing's behind. Ukraine's basically sucking up all of our resources to even fight a war, and now you take this and you've got basically they're telling the Pentagon, hey, we're going to have to start parking these, and we're running out of places to park them. Now, the F-35 is supposed to hit a 1-a-day rate production. I don't think they've gotten to that. This right here is the holdup, this tech refresh, or TR3 as they call it. You think about it, F-35 is a flying supercomputer. And so they have to put in tech refreshes. It stops all kinds of different things, from vulnerabilities, from hacks, to anything. It brings in new additional capabilities that maybe the system has been waiting for, and now it's available. But they're way behind on getting this pushed out to the aircraft. And so what that means is they pull them off the production line, and they're having to go park them somewhere. That becomes very dangerous, especially here in Texas with the hail that we get, because if you got a bunch of F-35s sitting out on a flight line that aren't covered, then they could be basically impacted by weather. You don't really have anywhere to park them. So, all right. And that's not an actual, that's something completely different. They're just showing you a bunch of F-35s stacked up on the ground, just FYI. Okay, the DRC Army says it stopped an attempted coup involving U.S. citizens. Well, I'm not going to go into the deets behind who would be behind that, but because obviously if I start talking about the DS or any of the other stuff, I get my videos taken down. So we don't want that to happen. So we'll just leave it at that. But the fact that we got 3 U.S. citizens tied into the mix of this, definitely a little sus. All right. But this is the other piece. You may remember Nigeria basically were sharing the barracks with the Russians, the Wagner group of all people in Nigeria. You have U.S. forces on one side. You got the Russian Wagner group on the other. So it's a recipe for disaster. They're saying we're not even going to pull out of there until mid-September. But Nigeria is basically, the PM is blaming the U.S. for threats. And that's the reason why we have all the broken military ties. Not a shocker. But anyway, this is, they're saying we're basically going to draw down and be out of there by mid-September. So we're bailing out of the area. Now, you may remember, and the reason for the threats is, you remember this lady came over. This is Victoria Newland. We know she is tied directly with some of the agencies. I'm not going to go any further than that, but this happened back in March, and she showed up in a basic panic because we were losing our stronghold in the region. And so there is a picture of her during that time, and yeah, this is why it just has gone south, all right? We've been kicked out of the country. Okay, let's talk about Dover, what's going on, what's flying around the world right now from an asset perspective. Just notice we still continuing to see the 747s arrive into Dover. Those are carrying things, obviously, RZE, Poland, Ramstein. So these are going to be the M1s, the ATACMs, all of the large equipment pieces, maybe even some Patriot missile systems, if they ever were approved. I think they haven't gotten them in, and that's the biggest complaint. But nonetheless, it's all going to Ukraine. All right. And then we get over here to, this is actually going to be Ramstein itself. And you can see, look at the Fowler flights coming in. We talked about these call signs, some G5s into the region. We saw them here just a minute ago when I was showing you aircraft that were currently up. Quite a few. And call sign, those could be C-17s as well, C-130s. And we get down here, but notice the Omnis that are arriving. This is from Perot. That one's coming inbound. More than likely, it's bringing some troops in. 747 from Dover. But notice that it, again, goes to JFK. We're going to look at the Omni flights here in just a minute, as well as some of the others. But very, very active at Ramstein right now. But this is more than likely immigrants bringing back into JFK. You don't bring troops into JFK, really. Okay, this is the Brits, and of course you can see them rolling in and out of the Mediterranean and then out of Europe, headed back to London. Moving on, U.S. Transportation Command. These are your camber flights. Just look at the amount in the air. Very active. Last time we talked, we had a dozen, and then we had them basically go through the cycle with about 4 more in there. But this is, as you can see, pretty active. And 6-7, so this it could have some troops. That's a Coletta Air. See the call sign there, CK. All right, but these right here, 777, 67 MD-11s, more than likely are all troops. Okay, here's your forward operating base, RZE. Remember, this is Ukraine border right here. All right, this is inside Poland. We go down a little bit. And just notice, you'll see the Brits showing up. Let me see who that is. That's an Antonov showing up, but that'll be a cargo plane. Here's your camber coming out of Dover. Head on down a little further. That is NATO. And let me see. That's the, I thought that was the French, but it's not. Okay, let me see where they're exiting. You see Coletta bolting out of there, Amerijet, and then a little further down. Amerijet we'll talk more about here in just a minute. Again, looks like NATO's headed back to Berlin. So pretty active. A lot of 747s rolling in. There's Western Global headed back to Hong Kong. So again, just showing up in force. And then here's your Omnis. Now, this is interesting. I am tracking the parent company of Omni, who also flies. They own a lot of the all cargo jets, or charters, because remember, they can be outfitted as cargo, cargoes can be outfitted as charters, but they also fly, or they own Amerijet, okay? And so let me just show you what these flights look like. This is a data point for you, 455 flights in the last 5 days. Again, Omni and Amerijet. Notice the amount going in and out of Hawaii, okay? And then notice up to Alaska. And then the Broken Traces, that's headed over to Asia, okay? And then see the flights headed down into Central America? Look at all of these. That's a lot of flights directly in and out of Central America, more than likely. Those are picking up immigrants. I'm just going to point that out. Don't have anything to confirm it, but we know they serve many masters. And that is more than likely what they're doing. And then, of course, you can see right there down to the Texas border. You can see them over here in Biggs Army Airfield. Go down a little further. You got them right there near the Brownsville and that side of the house into Houston. Pretty hot and heavy in and out of Houston. And then you can see all the little points that they're flying around the United States. Now, did they replace Swift Air? More than likely, they picked up a lot of that, thus the large volume. But it's a data point for you because remember, they carry a lot of troops. They carry a lot of equipment. They're doing cargo flights for the most part, as well as these camber flights. Okay. Look at the amount going in and out. There's RZ Poland. They're headed up into Norway and Sweden, down into, which I find interesting, into Tel Aviv. Right? See that flight in and out of there? Okay. Now, I got a lot to say about it, but I can't say it, so I'm just going to leave it at that. But it's just, again, a data point for you, okay? Very active, and that be your Omni, folks. All right, over here to this side, this is going to be National Cargo. Just see them coming out of Anchorage. This one's going to Mexico City. Don't know why, 747s. And then this one's coming from Anchorage, headed to Shanghai. So that's probably non-military related. This one may or may not be. So National Cargo may just be out of the cycle for the charters right now. All right, Western Global, you can just see this one coming from Hong Kong to Anchorage. That's got nothing to do with military. And then here we go. Let's talk about this helo crash very briefly. This guy, this is your big takeaway because, yeah, he was killed. President of Iran flew into some mountains. We'll look at the aircraft a little closer. Notice the words that were used here by, well, I guess the state TV declared this, okay? It says here, the servant of the Iranian nation, Ayatollah Rasi, has achieved the highest level of martyrdom while serving the people. Now, why? That's a key word right there. The fact that they talk about martyrdom, let's just look at the definition. What is that? A martyr, okay? A person who was killed because of their religious or other beliefs. So they're saying this guy died because of his basic belief, religious or other beliefs. That's a suspect to me, okay? So, anyway, this is the aircraft that they say he was in. It's a Bell 212. It's a very old system. They say this airplane was probably 40 to 50 years old, that according to Reuters. And if you're not familiar with the aircraft, this is what it looks like. They flew these in Vietnam. Probably doesn't have any type of sophisticated system. Even the helmet-mounted HUD, I doubt they have that in terms of terrain avoidance or flying in very dense weather, fog, etc., rain. But anyway, nonetheless, this is the aircraft that it came apart, and basically, I guess they call it a hard landing. There's no telling what could have happened. He could have just flown straight into a mountain, or he could have had an engine failure that caused him to auto-rotate, which would have been a hard landing and also would have had the same effect. So a lot of things going on here, and I won't get into the speculation, but we'll just cover it briefly. And the last thing here, because the Middle East seems to be heating up like a junkie spoon, is this one. As the Houthis claim they have shot down yet another MQ-9 Reaper drone. That looks a lot like the Q4 drone, but that is actually, it's got a propeller on it, doesn't fly at the same altitudes, but has a lot of the same capabilities and technology. So, all right. Listen, that's going to do it for our SITREP today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day. If you would, hit that like, subscribe, bell for notification there on the channel. And we'd love to have you over on Patreon. So check us out if you get a chance. Got a lot of extra content there that we don't have over here. All right. That's it. You guys be safe. God bless. Monkey out.